4 of our series. This is kind of I think a pretty good video because I feel like we've done a lot of work so far. And like for example here, if you look at the login screen, it's not really that exciting. So we went through a lot of concepts, and like some of the stuff is more advanced. And for example, setting up the navigators is not like a beginner concept. And dealing with the asynchronous data and building up our profile page, sending the pictures to CDN. I mean, I think that it was a pretty, not difficult, but a pretty contentful tutorial. And unfortunately, sometimes when you kind of look and you're like, it doesn't look that good. So what we're going to do here is, one, we're going to do go over the Redux stuff, which we'll save till the end. And two, we're going to kind of clean it up a lot and make it look nice and kind of like do those finishing touches. So you actually have something where you're, it looks decent and you would want to show someone. So first up there is going to be the profile page, obviously. And because I was doing this with the simulator, if you were doing it with your phone, you might not have this problem, but network request failed. Oh. I've been proxying the HTTP requests off my local machine. Okay. Anyway, so because I was using the simulator, we have these these pictures here. So if we pull up our original screenshot, I want it to look a little more like this. Which I'd say we're not quite there. So I want to first, though, I'm going to just change off these. So if you take a look there, you can kind of see the same content. So for example, they have this tab bar here, which we've already accomplished with our tab navigator. Now if you want to know how to add icons or fill the icons in like that to show which tab is active, we're doing that now actually. It's just not, like you see it turns blue. So you can actually, if you just check the documentation for the tab navigator, they have all of the information. And that's like kind of boilerplate stuff I don't really want to go over, because that's kind of, you just go to React Navigation docs, read the docs, and your entire, let's say you're a professional React Native developer, you may have to do that 6 times on 6 different projects, depending on how long is the scope. It's kind of one of those things you just look to do it in. It's not worth going over in the video, that's my point. But it's all in the documentation. I've done it before, I can assure you. It's not that difficult. So that's the tab bar. But these pictures here, we gotta sub in some of real pictures because ours look terrible. So what I'm gonna do is, we can do either a dog theme or a travel theme, and since our feed is already kind of dog based, I think I'm gonna stick with it. I'm a little impartial if you haven't told already. So let's just get some pictures in there because it really will make a difference. And then here you have this tab navigator. I'm sorry, the stack navigator. So that we can get from the navigation library if we need. And I'll show you guys how to do that actually. So first off, let me just sub in some pictures quick. And all I'm going to do is go to Google Image, Pixels. The only thing is these pictures are like huge. I just could download like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I just could download 3 of these pictures and repeat them so that we're not, here all day. But a small one, we're gonna we're going anyway. Actually, this will be cool because we have to use the copper. This guy's cool. That's a giant one. Hold on. By the way, if you're doing like a site for a client, you just need some kind of like generic photos. This is a good site. They're all free in terms of there's no license or anything. Alright, so I got these 3 pictures. So all I'm going to do is, and this actually works good because I can show you guys a useful feature of Turbo. We can use the GUI to just kind of edit our data. So first what I'm going to do is go into our into our app here, and if you go to our storage where we have, oh, you know what, we were uploading on the first time. One second. Okay, this is the one we want. I think I might have set up our local data store and our client side one with the 2 different apps, so it's a little confusing, but that doesn't really it doesn't really make a difference for here. It's just a free CDN, so basically I need to upload some files quick. This 1.9 meg one is what what we want to trash. Okay. Gonna open that there. Let's do 2 more real quick. One, 2. All right, there we go. So what I'm going to do though is take these URLs and just kind of randomly pick some of these photos here and swap them out. So let's go to our data store, our photo, and let's change that one. And let's just refresh this, see if that worked as desired before I go crazy here. Oh, there you go. So, all right, let's delete these so we only have like 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And also this should be like a scroll view. Delete, delete. We did too much testing before. Now I'm just filled with these like junk photos. So give me a second here. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And that's fine for now. So that one I edited. 1, 2, 3. Change this one. 4, 5, 6, 7. I'll change this one quick. I'll grab this guy. Change this. And my favorite one. All right, let's just give this a quick refresh, see how we're doing. All right, there we go. So those are all loading, and I should have reversed the order here so they're not all stacking, but I get the point. Okay, so these are loading. Let's check out our image we're working with here. I'm assuming this is actually going to be a scroll view, so let's go back here and go to our profile page, and at the top let's import a scroll view. And let's just change this right here and see what happens. The most outermost view that we already have. Through the content container style prompt. Okay, so it didn't really like what we just did. So alternatively, let's just wrap everything else in that's already in there in a scroll view. Okay, so that's good. And now so when we start adding more images that they won't overflow off the screen, we'll have this scroll. Kind of need this profile section here. And then we have this little, again, I don't even have Instagram. I'm not sure what, maybe this is like your messages and maybe like some geo stuff or pictures you're tagged in. This though we want to align to the, well, we don't want to align to the bottom because we have a scroll view, so ignore that. But we do need to put in another block here for this content. So view. And actually now I'm looking, I still have this on press login left over from, I think we just copied and pasted earlier when we were testing out some layout stuff, some navigation stuff. So we get rid of that. Let's just make another view up here. And we'll give it a style of profile info. Sounds good. I should really just have hot reloading on. I don't know why I didn't do that. I don't keep logging in. Okay, so I'm going to give this a width of 100% and a height of, so there's a lot of ways you can do height and width and stuff, and I'm going to give it a height of, let's see if I do 33% if that works more. 1, 2, 3. Or just to start, we'll give it a height of 100. That looks okay. I'm just going to leave that for now while we're playing around, and we can decide if we want to make him more responsive or whatnot. But That looks to be, well, these need to get a little lower. Oh, that's good. And then in here we have an image with our profile pic. Then, so we're probably, like, if you look, we're going to kind of have kind of like a marker or something. Two like rows here, like 1, 2. And so we're gonna make these like flex rows, and then in these rows, this one's pretty straightforward. But then here we're gonna make a row for this and a row for this, and this is gonna have 3 columns, and we should get that info. And then we don't have the backend built out to fill in the data now, but it will set up Redux, and it'll be a good example of how to kind of pull in this data automatically. Again, so 2 rows, 1, 2, okay. So let's give the parent display flex. I'm going to say flex direction is going to be column, which gives us 2 rows. If the direction is column, it gives us 2 rows. And we're going to have a row. And are these even heights? I'm not going to give these any default heights, and I'm going to let the content kind of automatically size those. So flex direction row. I'm going to make sure that the width is 100%. And I'm just going to put some placeholder text in these. And because I didn't give those any like required height, like if I give these a flex of 1, they're gonna fill up more space. But for now, they're just filling the minimum space. So you'll see right here that 1 and 2, which will change shortly. Let's do this one first. It's easier. It's going to be username, and I guess your like description or something. So eventually this is something that's going to be like dynamic props.username. But for now, we're going to just do is I'll just leave it static. Right, and font is obviously way off, so we're going to need to bump that up. Just also change the color while we're at it. Can't even tell if it's like gray or black or whatnot, but RG. Oh, it's just black, so don't need to change anything. Well, let's just bump up the size. We'll give one bold font weight, bold. And I got these wrong, so it's going to be bold for the name, small. So this flex direction here for these two, we want a column so that they stack on top of each other like that. Okay. And here we want to do a row, and then we're going to have a column here and a column here, and this one's going to have 2 rows. So I'm just trying to show you how like the whole flex thing works. And this is what I was saying before, if we just get rid of this minimum height, it'll lay itself out. So as we write more, it'll pull this down. So everything basically tries to fill the minimum height available if it's not explicitly told, like, hey, you have to be at least 100 pixels. Okay, so in here we have 2 columns now. Remember, row is going to make some columns for us. I'll give this a flex of 1, and this a flex of 2. Oh, you can't see because there's nothing in there, but that it's kind of going to split it up to like percentage wise. So I'm going to give them just some heights to see if it can demonstrate my point here. So you see how now, like that's kind of like one of the big ideas of Flexbox. It's like ratio based. So now, if this is a flex of 1 and 3, it's split into thirds because 1 plus 2 is 3, and this is going to be 1/3, and this is 2/3. Same as we can make this 8. This would be 8/9, and this would be 1/9. So that's what that does. And it looks like from the design, this is kind of, I could do a quick measurement. 500, 150. It's about 1/3 to 1/4. So 1/3 to 1/4, 30. We could do like this. And if you were on a real project, you'd have a designer, and you would, you would know this, and you'd have some sort of general style guide you'd follow. And we also see the status bar here. We probably want to give a margin at the top, unless we want to use that tab. The tab bar will take care of that. But until then, or padding, it's 20 on the iPhone. So yep, there's your status bar. And let's give a profile picture. I think I have one in the feed here. I'll use that as a temporary one. So if we go to our feed post.js, Now this styles.userPick is down here. Well, we're not going to use the same one, so let's come back in here. And we want this in our Flex 3 container. So down here we have to decide what we want to do. I want to see if I give a height of, well, there's no, well, these containers have fixed heights. Let's see if I give a height of 100%, what happens. So it's blurry, but that's kind of what we're going for. And now if I get rid of this height here in these rows, watch what happens. There's like no, it kind of loses it needs like some kind of parent telling us what its height is. Otherwise now it's just trying to fill as much as is left. And so we need padding. Well, this whole thing needs some padding. So profile info. Let's do padding vertical. 10. It's a little better. I'll make it 20. Again, we're missing this top part. It's kind of hard to visualize. And I don't know why I used such a bad picture in terms of sizing. Oh, you know what? I think... Oh no, I thought maybe I was resizing here. I don't even remember what we did last week, but I'm assuming I uploaded some super small picture. Oh, probably from right there. Yeah. So I'm just going to leave it for now. But let's give it an explicit height. And a border radius. And a width. Now we have a circle. And we want this to be positioned in the center of this container, which for now is red, but it's going to disappear. We're not going to get rid of the red. So let's just change it to so first let's justify our content center. So that's this way, and we also need to align content center, or align items center, I believe. It looks off to me, but it's about 10. I mean, I guess it's okay. I think it's some off-center in the picture. It's like an optical illusion. Anyway, we don't really need that background color anymore. That was just for demonstration purposes. No, I don't think there's a... Yeah, it's all just blank here. So let's get rid of that. Let's move on to this guy here. Again, we need 2 rows in there. And again, we don't really need this background color blue anymore. These are going to be rows. So I hope this is kind of like helping get a better idea of like Flexbox. And then this row, top row, is going to have 3 columns. And then I think we should be good in terms of like the base structure. And each of these columns, just for now, we're planning on just throwing some text. And for these, we want to give them a flex of 1 so they evenly take up that space like I was talking about before. And 128 posts. All right, so take this whole column. We want 3 of those. So paste them in here. And let's see if this actually, so you see up there kind of what we're going for. 265 followers. And we just want to center this in its respective row here. Let's, before we do that, just drop in the other row that edit profile text. And so this, obviously we could do a little more centering. I know this is very tedious, but this is kind of a good example of kind of matching a layout, and you're going to be doing this UI stuff a lot in your careers, whether it's your interest or not. So edit profile, we need to give this some width. I'm just going to give it a width of 100, fill up any available room. And we're going to for flex direction is row. We want to center. So it justifies along your main axis. And these we want to center. I'm trying to see if we, yeah. I think we should just give these each a flex of 1. These looks to be about half. So let's just go back. Flex 7, height 100. So right here, for each row, give it a flex of 1. And so give a little more spacing. And what we could do here is we can use a now they should all be centered, so ignore me. But I guess we should really be using styles, but at the bottom. So styles dot, we can call it stat column, and Yeah, this is a good example. I should use classes or JavaScript or some way to keep track of your classes so you don't have to update this in multiple places. It's basically just a lot of like breaking things into boxes and then kind of centering them in those boxes. Like you'll even start to see this kind of coming together. This edit profile I can already tell is not centered. I should probably blow this up a little for you guys. That's good. This needs a background color. I'll just and I also think like if you want to get better at design, that this is a good way of just copying other real apps. Or not better at design. If you're trying to implement good design in your apps, like check out other apps. And obviously this isn't perfect, but like we're pretty close to the profile view now. Or, you know, yes, I should adjust like some of these fonts and stuff. Like we can bold these if you want and change the color, but I don't want to waste all of your time. But the point is like the layout is pretty close now, and you guys should be able to just change these fonts and whatnot. We have this bar here, which should be is just a matter of I'll put in the bar, and you have to go just kind of find these images. So I'll do that real quick. Only take a second. Use style equals config dot. And we were using this row of 50 for something, so I'm just going to use it again. I don't even know if it's relevant, but so we'll give that a height and a width of 100. And I can't tell if there's a background color there or if that's just this hairline. No? Okay, so then we're going to give it a, you know what, let's do this. Let's pull all this down to our style sheet again. Call this top bar. Width and border top margin. Border top width. That color's a little off. We want to go a little lighter. Gonna add it to the bottom there quick. And then we want to change those colors. Border color. And I know this is a little tedious again, but this kind of helps you feel, I think, better about kind of like styling an app. You kind of follow along. What was that RGB 239 we used? Um, oh, I just to swap the orders there. I also. All right, so there's this little top bar thing, and then in there's kind of these 5 spots where you guys are gonna have to go find some icons and just throw them in there. But again, just to show you how it's done, what we're gonna do is make 5 views of Flex 1. And then we need to make this flex direction row. And I need to give it like some width so you can see if there's even something in there. Styles.top bar icon. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and so top bar, we're just going to change to flex direction row. And top bar icon. We're going to just give this same properties. Border left. And again, that's for that really subtle line. And flex of 1. Let's see how that looks. I'm just going to change this to red for a second so you can see, but that's what we want, these 5 sections. And then you guys could go pull in some icons, but we pretty much have our layout done. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we can, and again, I feel pretty good about like this layout now, where you guys can kind of do the little stuff, change these fonts yourself. Like this should be bold, this is a different color, and I'm going to set up Redux, and then we should be good to go. And we do want to pull here in for all users. Instead of these static images as well. So that's kind of where we're going to finish off. I'm going to take a quick break and be right back. Guys, we've done a lot, and we're on the final stretch here to finish this out with our Redux integration. I feel like we went over some of the UI stuff pretty well. Like for example, in the profile, kind of got this down. As I said, you can adjust the fonts, drop in these icons here if you want to match the image. By the way, as we make more images, now that we're in the scroll view there, we keep going. So this is working pretty nicely. Actually, I'm pretty pleased. Sometimes I make videos that kind of just I have like a pretty good idea what I want to make, but it changes, and sometimes it doesn't turn out exactly how you want because of, for example, like before we were talking about the Redux stuff and some workarounds. But on this one, I was like, oh, this actually came out pretty good. But anyway, like fix these fonts if you really want to like polish, just make a portfolio type project. Download the icons, bring them in. Here, as I said, check the React navigation docs. There is documentation on how to add custom icons here, and they will change color when you select them. But what I want to spend time on is the Redux integration, and then from there you can build out more methods, and we kind of went over some API stuff, so you should be pretty comfortable in terms of, you know, making more advanced relationships and stuff. But I think that's the last part that we do need to go over. I was trying to avoid it, but we've gone over why we need to address it, and I think that's one area where I should spend the rest of this series addressing. So basically, we need this, as we mentioned a couple times, this global data store. So for example, when I log in here, we're navigating between scenes, between stacks. We get back this user data. So this, in our route here, we're sending back all this data about our user. We can attach all sorts of stuff to it. We can attach all of our images, for example. So maybe we attach all our images on login, right? Then we don't need to do another fetch here for all our images. And by the way, if you notice, these reversed. So that's like another example, something we could sort in our store, so it's always consistent. But anyway, so basically we're like, when we send this request to the server, we're saying users logging in. We can already get our user info, save it globally. We can already get all our images attached to that, save it globally. We don't need to, for example, on camera when we get the callback, pass in the params, this and that. And we actually had to hard code one thing because it was not too difficult. It was too messy to even try to pass between the components. So we said this is going to be one of the first things we accomplish with Redux. So I'm going to just start with the integration, and I'm not going to get too far into theory, but I hope you kind of see why we need to share data between components. We can't do it that easily with our current structure, and there needs to be some state management library. Now, if you for some reason you want to use MobX, or I don't know, whatever the newest one of the week is, that's fine. My important thing I'm trying to go over here is why we kind of need these libraries. So I'm just trying to think. Okay, let's just go to our and by the way, here I have just some boilerplate in case I get stuck, just so we can kind of breeze through this. Again, even I check docs, a lot of it's boilerplate. You might forget something. I should be able to do it from off the top of my head, but if not, I'll just check. So again, don't feel bad if you say, wow, how do they do this so fast? Okay, so let's go to our components. Let's make a new directory in our source, and we're going to call it, let's just call it Redux. That'll be easy. And because we have a minimal implementation here, we can make it a little easier. I'm just going to make individual files in here. Well, actually, no, let's follow best practice. So cd into Redux, and then you're going to have 4 folders, or 5. You're going to have constants. Let me zoom in and make sure everyone can see. Constants, reducers, actions, stores, constants, reducers, actions, stores. I think that should be it. And then let's go to our actions and create an index.js, just our base index file. Let's go to our stores, create an index.js. Let's go to our constants, create an index.js. See what I said, we probably could have got away with just making single files, but. And in our reducers, we're going to need a count reducer and I'll call it a post reducer. So we do need multiple files here and an index. And how do we want to start? So I'll just show this random project. Basically we're going to have this global data store, and so like as you know with React, we pass everything down from the top level to the lower level components. So this kind of is going to wrap the root of our project. So if you go to your app.js, where you have return instaclone, we're basically going to wrap this entire application in this Redux structure or higher order component and give access to the data store, which have one data store that everyone shares. So we need to create that data store first. So we're going to have to install some npm packages, and the first one is Redux. And the second one, because I know they've become kind of synonymous, but they don't actually have to work together, is React Redux. And that should be it for now for this tutorial. So if we go to our Redux folder, I'll start with our constants because it's kind of how it all starts. So export, and so we're going to export. So each constant is the reason there's might not make sense here. The reason there's these constants is because all our actions are basically triggered off these types. So basically some function gets called and changes our state, right? And the reason for a constants file is just some global place that kind of stores these names for actions, so you don't accidentally use one that someone else is using on like a big project, and then you mess up everything. That's kind of the reason for it. And again, it won't make sense here, but if you're on a big project, you'll kind of start to see why. So I'm just going to start. I'm going to call this one account or user received, and it's literally just a JSON object. It's not really that exciting. Export default. Okay. So now we have some constant, and with this constant we can trigger a case in our reducer. So again, it's all going to sound very like big, and it's one of those things. Just kind of follow along, do it a bunch. Kind of for today's purposes, just see how it makes our app easier to use and whatnot, and the state management in general, why it's useful. And over time, if you do more projects and do more tutorials, it'll make more sense. So we want to basically, we have this reducer. So let's go to our reducer, and right here we're going to import account reducer. This is just, it's a lot of boilerplate, to be honest. One of the kind of thing people always complain about. I don't really care or mind, but it's a big complaint. Too much boilerplate for people that are new or just getting started. So just to give you a heads up, if you think the same, you're not alone. And that's our index. So let's go to our actual post reducer. We're going to import our constants. Constants. Again, all boilerplate. And there's a very good chance I messed up some syntax. I think I'm good, but so basically we have this export default here, and by default we're going to have an initial state that we pass in and an action, and then that action is always going to have a type, and then we check the type, and if the type matches constants.userReceive, so if we go to our constants file, that's this, then we do one thing. And that's what I was kind of saying, of the constants file kind of restricts those to make sure we're not crashing. So, and then we do something with our global state object. And so again, this is all just boilerplate, very boring. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do console log the action and see if, once we think we have it all hooked up, if it works. Now, I mean, there's whole tutorials on this for probably 5 hours, so we're kind of going quick. So this is this, and we just need to, so we have this export default, and we import our account reducer. We just need to paste this in here, and we don't even need this case, just so we don't have an issue with our export default, if that makes sense. We're importing something from here. We need to actually be exporting it. So let's go to our actions file. So here we have just different actions that we're going to be able to call from our components. And let's start with, I'm going to say post received. Or do we call the other one posts? Oh, we're doing user. Did I do that in the wrong reducer? Sorry guys, it's been a long day. Okay, let's just go to this post. Let's just, instead of user receive, let's just, well, that is the most important one. Just swap these file names real quick for me. Obviously, we want the account one to be dealing with this user received issue. So let's go back to these actions, and I'm going to call this user received, and we're going to take a user, and we're going to return let's import our constants. So we need a type. So this is like a rule of Redux. Every action here needs to return a type. And these are just regular JavaScript objects with some sort of data and some sort of type, and those types refer to a piece of our reducer, so we know what we're editing. Constant dot user received, and the data is going to be the user. So there's our action. Constant reducer, so stores. So this one is a little more boilerplate than the rest, so I may need to do some copy and paste here. Let's see. Configure store. So I think it's const. No, I'm just we're not using thunk, so don't have to worry about that. So configure store. We don't have an initial state. Okay, so sorry guys. Okay, so this is going to take nothing. We're not dealing with an initial store. And we're going to call combine reducers to combine those reducers. And post, and you'll notice that we don't actually have access to these reducers. We need to import them. Const reduce configure store, and I think we need to do store equals create store reducers. We don't need any of that stuff. So it's const. Well, I'm gonna just keep it consistent. I don't want any unexpected surprises, but I don't think we're using any of that stuff. Create store reducers, and we're not using thunk middleware. That's probably a tutorial for another day. Reducers initial, and we return store. And current store also return store. I don't think we're going to even use that. All right. So again, this is just some boilerplate. Don't get too caught up with it for now. But the important thing is we're making this kind of where this global store lives. And this combine reducers, it puts together those account and post reducers we created, even though again there's not anything there yet. So what we need to do is kind of wrap our whole component with this store. So we go to our root app.js, where you want to import store from source Redux stores, and this is going to be from React Redux. provider. And I'm going to check our boilerplate again real quick. Provider store dot configure store. Okay, yep, we should be good. So basically, again, we're wrapping the entire app in this kind of data store we're working on. Closing tag. Store. We'll see if our app crashes. Store's default configure store is not a function. Okay, so import store. And our original store export default configure store. Like I said, I'm very tired. It may have been an autocomplete or something too. Previous state received by reducer account or post. All right, so let's check our reducers. Export. Previous state by reducer, unexpected type of function. Okay, so our reducers are good. Import reducers. All right, give me 1 second. I just mixed up the order of these arguments in create store. Again, a lot of boilerplate. So it always wants these reducers first, then initial, and let's do that. And we want to test to see if it's hooked up. I mean, now it's not breaking, which is an improvement, but we basically, so anything in the store we can access globally, right? So let's just go back to this account reducer, for example. And in this initial state here, we can put in a starting state. So I'm going to say user name test user. And so this is why I usually don't use hot reload, by the way. There's some problem with or some extra configuration you need to work with Redux. I'll turn it off now. Okay. So basically, we want to try to hook up one of our components to see if we have access to this user. I think it's let me rerun that real quick. So if for some reason there's some extra configuration needed when you have hot reload running, and this all gets froze up. So that's why earlier I didn't even think to use hot reload. But all right, anyway, while this is going, let's go to our. So where do we want some user data? The first place we wanted it was in our profile. All right, let me turn off hot reload quick. Okay. So if we go to our Redux screens, no, components, profile. We set this user ID manually, which we don't want to do. So what I want to try to do is get access to that global store, and we're going to set the store on login. So you got to import connect from React Redux, and import actions from, let me see if I can get this right, // Redux actions. So this one we're not going to need yet, but actually we're not going to even need that one here. So we just need connect. And at the bottom here, this is all boilerplate. If you guys are really going to do React Native development, you'll probably do this over 10,000 times in the next, I don't know, 6 months. So and then we use that connect function here. And all I want to do is so basically you can go into your reducer and track individual properties. I just want to see if we can see any of the state to see if this is hooked up for now. So I'm going to say go to the top, component did mount, console.log, and so anything in there, like we just said state to props, we name that function, it basically gives this to the provider and it maps it to our prop. So now anything that's in this state we can just access like a normal prop. So the navigation was doing something similar when we were saying this.props.navigation, but this we can define. So this one I'm just saying this.props.state, and I hope that does not cause an issue. I don't think it should. Why is this a problem now? let's go to profile and let's go to, all right, so check it out right here. We logged this, this is our entire state. So if you remember, we made those initial states. Remember, we had the account reducer and the post reducer. And then in here, we have account user name.test user. So what we really want is our user ID here. So sorry for all the scrolling. So down here, I'm going to call this just user. We're going to say state.account.user. And then there's a name prop, so we're going to have to get an ID prop from that. And if we come back to where we were using this .state.user ID, just in this one spot here, right? So let's just call this user. And well, we don't need to check for null because you have to be logged in actually. So we're going to say this .props dot user dot ID. So again, state, then this is our account reducer, and then that user object which we defined, and then we're trying to get their ID. So we don't have that ID. In our fake one, we can make it to make sure it still works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take this, and I'm going to get rid of this. And let's go back to our reducer. I want to check this one more time. Yep, that should be good. Where's our reducer? We're given ID prop. So if we refresh the page and fetch with this ID, we're pulling this from this state here. But again, we're just hard coding this, so this is not really much better than last time, unless we can figure out a way to, so look, it worked, unless we can figure out a way to kind of pass in that ID. So where are we going to get that ID? On login. So let's go back to login. Again, just to reiterate, that just worked. So let's go back to login. And if you look before, we navigated to camera and kind of inserted this user ID, JSON response.data.id. What we want to do now instead is send this data to that reducer, to our store, and then we can access it from anywhere. So again, we just pulled the static data, now we're going to set it dynamically. So we need to go to the top here, and we need to do the same import actions from // Redux actions, and get import connect. And scroll down to the bottom. You're going to have to do the same thing. And now this time, instead of writing out like getting the state, now we're writing out sending something to the state. So we're going to do one of these dispatch to props here, and I'm going to call it user received, and it's going to take a user object, And we're going to dispatch actions dot user received, which I think is what I just called it before. We're going to have to check. And dispatch. Okay, so again, this has to come from you're importing this from your actions file, so just make sure you have that user received. Okay. And then this sends this constant with the data, but just to jump back here to our login file. And remember, we left the console log in there earlier, so we should be able to test this. So now we're just going to navigate to the main app. We don't want to. The only reason we're going to that camera was to pass in that ID for that like kind of wonky. So we can just do this. We're going to navigate to main. And we just want this JSON response.data, and not the ID. We're saving the whole user now. Get rid of all this. And before we navigate, we probably want to call our action this.props.user received JSON response.data. All right, let's give this a try to see what happens. Okay, here's our console log. And look right here. In our reducer, we have that log saying type user received and some data, and then this data is the whole user object with this ID. So the last thing is we have to actually save that. And if we go over to our reducer, basically what you want to do is you need to copy your state, and then you kind of pick off a little piece and assign it to the new object. Again, this could be a whole series, but for now, let's just get it working. This is the intro series. So let new state equal. It's kind of similar to what we were doing before in the state. We're gonna do object assign. State, and then here we just say new state dot user, so we're dot data, and we return the new state, and let's just see if it works. So again, now we're getting this data here. We're not passing it any other way. So we're passing all that data to the main app. Now if we go to our profile, we just fetched with that data, so it's working. And if you want to be confident, let's just get rid of this test one we were just using. Do this one more time. Yep, still working. And we had one, oh, in our camera here, so you cannot read property user undefined. Source components. Camera. So this is getting something from props.navigation. And we don't need to pass in this new pick data anymore. We're getting it all from Redux. So let's do this. And where was it? User ID, this.props. We don't need any of this anymore. So let's get rid of that. import connect from React Redux. Oops, sorry, I'm getting a phone call. 1 second. So anyway, this is the last place we were passing through that. I could just confirm props dot navigation, that less than ideal navigation state. And profile. Oh, we had that listener too. Okay, give me a second. So anyway, we connect here in the camera, and then we have to do, and I'm going to paste it, so I won't do it again. Con state to props, dispatch to props. And it's in the camera here. Like I said, you're going to do it a million times. So basically, this is just kind of a way to keep one global data store. And we all share it. No weird passing stuff between components. State to props. So this has, so right here, this .state.user ID. We're going to do again this .props.user.id. Again, this .props.user maps here to user, which is state.account.user, and we get that ID. Let's see if that fixes that. Again, so this ID is now we log in here, and that same ID is being passed to the camera with the profile. It's using that same ID which we received from the server on login, and it's just stored in one place. So we just created a photo, which did that work? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the one thing I may have just altered and not properly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I suspect we're creating our photo, just not properly updating our store there, our local store. Yeah, see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So we just made those photos. I obviously just changed some of the logic there. What I was saying before is, I'm going to do this one last thing, is maybe we could just, I was thinking of getting these photos on login, so we only do one request. But if the user doesn't go to the page, we're not sending actual photos, just the links. So, okay, let's pull up our API. And that's my old boilerplate. Oh, where's my API? Okay, let's pull up our old API. Now we're going to come into here, and what we want to do is, on this old login route, and again, we probably want to do, on register you don't have any photos, but on this, why do I have 2 logins? Post login. I'm hoping okay, just for some reason I have 2 of these. So what I want to do here is I'm just going to turn this into a quick promise chain. And here, where we get our users' photos, user ID photo, here. Oh, you know what? That was just in our resource. Fetch resource query. So what I'm going to do is just take this and go down to our login, then data, and what we want to do, we'll call this then user. I'm going to say return turbo.fetch photo, and this query is going to be user, and it's going to be this user.id. Let user, and we need to declare this outside here because we're going to adjust it. So we're going to say let user, then user, then data, then user. I'm going to say user equals user. User dot photos equals this data, and I think we might be off here just with, we might have an extra key or something in here, but for now I just want to run this and see what happens, if that makes sense. Some syntax error, which I'm surprised. You guys probably are not that surprised by now. It's hard on these screens sometimes. How did I get resource? Then user. All right, that should be good here. Yeah, let's just give this a try. I'm kind of just thinking that this could work, but let's also jump back here when we receive our user. Let's throw a console log back in there. Where is it? Again, this is very ambitious, but we're just throwing in here where this user received. Let's just console log the whole thing and see if this flows through with these extra photos. No guarantees again. Cannot set properties photo of undefined. Okay. So let user let logged in user equal null. Then when we log in, let's say logged in. I'm assuming there's a scope naming issue there. Yeah, that makes sense. Return turbo.fetch user is going to be logged in user. Then data logged in user dot photos equals data. And here we want to return the logged in user. All right, let's try that again. Cannot read property ID of null. All right. Const logged in user. So I'm going to say logged in user equals user. See what I'm saying? We might have an extra key here, so let me log this. Might be like user.data or something. Sorry guys, somehow there's not another instance of this running, affecting my logging, so give me a second, kill some processes. Oops, that was clearly the wrong one. Alright, give me a second, I gotta restart that. And let me start this guy. So that's the ID I want. I wonder if it's kind of some sort of async thing. So let me just... I'm going to use this user ID just in case. No. So let logged in user equals no. Sorry guys, I'm just doing something probably just stupid and basic JavaScript, but it's what happens. No, let logged in user. So we'll log this in, return a bad user. Let's just do logged in user not defined. So the only thing is here, this user we won't have access to in this block. Login rec.body, then user return turbo.fetch. Oh, here we go. I think that I don't think we can have semicolons on these fetch blocks. User is not defined. See right here, we can't log the user. And I was trying to declare it out here so we wouldn't have the issue, but I'm having some type of issue. Regress function. Login, then user. See, the weird part is our promise chain is working. Right, so we get all these photos that we want. Again, I'm doing something wrong here, but we do have the IDs because we're searching by those IDs, so we can just return this whole thing and just fix our action quick, and that should do it. So we're getting back these. So basically, we log in successfully. We get our user. For some reason, I had trouble building a custom object to send back, but something with scoping in the promise chain, but let's not hold us up anymore. Let's take this user here, and we get his photos, which are already tied to him, so we have his ID. So let's send these back for now. Again, this is not ideal, but it will accomplish what we need. And right here, let's send these back. And we just need to briefly adjust our reducer to work with this kind of weird data shape for now. So if you jump back here, this is what we got back, this blob of data. So what we can do is grab the user ID off the first one of these. So data sub 0 dot user, and this is actually turning into a good teaching point because we can, so like now we can just update how we access our data in one place. So we all just use this same data. It actually works very nicely. So newsdate.user equals newsdate.data sub. So we're just going to real quick build a user. So const user equals ID, and we can shape our data any way we want. And then right here we can do photos. It's going to be that whole array. And say new state.user equals user. And let's run that again. So if this works, our ID, if our ID goes through, our profile screen should work. We're trying to, again, match that same shape of the data, so it does. But right here, we're refetching these images, and this is kind of what I was trying to explain. We don't want to refetch them. We were trying to just, we have them now all staved in here under so we have all these images. So what I want to do is just jump back real quick to our profile page. And let's get rid of this.state.profile pics. And again, we were using this nav listener. That could be an exercise on your own time. I'm going to get rid of it to like build up our store. It's that you have to make a new action for. I'll just leave it if you want to look at it. But this.state.profile pics, instead we're going to say this.props.user.photos.map. And let's make sure we're not refetching, just so we know that we're getting that one source of data. So we comment out this whole fetch method here. So again, we're only just receiving its user, and his photo's already tied to him on our first login, and we don't need to refetch. And did it work? All right, so I ran into a little trouble in the back end. We were able to salvage it, and again, when we log in, we receive this one user object with all these photos tied in, and we were able to adjust our reducer to kind of get that ID from the photo stream and kind of shape our data, which is something you're going to have to do in projects a lot. And basically, even though it was not what we were expecting back from the server, we were able to keep all our components the same because they're all just reading from a user.id. And yeah, so that actually worked out pretty good. And then again, we're not refetching these photos. These are just given to us. If you guys want next steps, I would say 1, make an endpoint to deliver all photos. And this is really easy. So you just want to basically, like before, where on the back end here, we are searching for by user ID. You want to just get all the photos, and then you're going to drop those into the stream where we had these. And again, that probably should take you guys like 5 minutes. It's really easy to Redux. And also here, where we get that one photo, you need to try to write a custom action to basically send that photo to your store from this component, so they don't talk to each other. And as of now, this is not going to work now because of the way we're rendering our photos. We need to get this photo into the store, and it's actually very very easy, but I think that's a good kind of exercise to let you guys off with. And then I'd say work on some more of the styling, like these icons, the font sizes here. See if you can figure out how to do the icons here. Styling here is decent, but again, I would just play around with the different sizes and the flex and stuff. And I mean, we went through a lot here, and I think it leaves you in a good spot to kind of try to finish it off on your own. There's nothing you shouldn't be able to do at this point. Yeah, so I mean, I know it was a long series and it was tough because we went through like a ton of stuff. We went over just basic layout, basic React Native components and setup, React navigation, Redux, storing things on CDN, building an API. So it was actually a pretty comprehensive and difficult tutorial. You know, it was a beginner tutorial, but we went through some difficult stuff. So you guys should be kind of feeling confident to jump into more difficult tasks. And, you know, like I said, these kind of homework type assignments that I'm leaving for you guys to do. I'd say this is the easiest one. So again, just to reiterate, if you go to your main feed or post feed, we have this list here of this data. Maybe if you can just fetch all the photos from an endpoint. Again, same as we were doing with the user, but we're fetching just the user photos, but no query string. That'll give you all of the photos. And then maybe drop them in here and render those. That should be fairly easy. That's what I would try next. And then if you get that, try to store that in Redux. And again, you want to store that in the post reducer, so it won't interfere with your account stuff, right? Because they're kind of two different ideas. And then the final part is, like I said, if you can get this one user photo, and the same as we did with local state, add that to your store. I think that would be a good place to leave off. Like I said, it's been a good series, and I was glad to teach it. So I hope to see you guys in the next one, and see you soon. Good luck. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I am actively encouraging you to try those points I left off on, and if you get stuck, leave something in the comments. And but I would say you should be able to accomplish those items. All right, thanks guys. See you in the next series.